Now we're live.
So, had we already kicked the ass of the black serpent on red?
Yes, we also killed the Wraith King.
Oh, nice.
So we're at the point where Aemir saw Eowyn and he like kind of went crazy and everybody rode off.
Roaring away southwards.
Yes.
Oh.
And here is my project for those who were not here, which is everyone except you. I am sewing tiny little hooks and eyes onto cloth for the rest of my life, probably.
Yep.
Where's my thimble? There it is.
Whew. And still Meriadoc, the hobbit, stood there blinking through his tears, and no one spoke to him. Indeed, none seemed to heed him. He brushed away the tears and stooped to pick up the green shield that Eowyn had given him, and he slung it at his back. Then he looked for his sword that he had let fall, for even as he struck his blow his arm was numbed, and now he could only use his left hand. And behold, there lay his weapon, but the blade was smoking like a dry branch that had been thrust in a fire, and as he watched it, it writhed and withered and was consumed. So passed the sword of the Barrow Downs, work of Westerness, but glad would he have been to know its fate, who wrought it slowly long ago in the North Kingdom when the Dunedain were young, and chief among their foes was the dread realm of Angmar and its sorcerer king. No other blade, not though mightier hands had wielded it, would have dealt that foe a wound so bitter, cleaving the undead flesh, breaking the spell that knit his unseen sinews to his will.
Yeah.
Hell of a coinkydink.
There are other powers at work in this world than the will of evil, my friend.
That's right. And they appreciate a slow burn.
Don't we all?
Men now raised the king, and laying cloaks upon spear truncheons, they made shift to bear him away toward the city. And others lifted Eowyn gently up and bore her after him. But the men of the king's household they could not yet bring from the field, for 7 of the king's knights had fallen there, and Eorwine, their chief, was among them. We haven't met him. We never got to meet him. He just existed, and then he died.
R.I.P. Diorwine.
It might be Diorwine too, I don't know, but we'll go with wine. So they laid them apart from their foes and the fell beast, and set spears about them. And afterward, when all was over, men returned and made a fire there and burned the carcass of the beast. But for Snowmane they dug a grave and set up a stone upon which was carved in the tongues of Gondor and the mark, "Faithful servant, yet master's bane, Lightfoot's foal, swift Snowmane." Green and long grew the grass on Snowmane's howe, but ever black and bare was the ground where the beast was burnt. I bet they didn't eat it either.
I would imagine they did not.
I mean, Sauron was feeding it fell meats. I can't even imagine how bad that.
Oh yeah, the meat would have tasted absolutely horrible.
Yeah. That's why we don't eat scavengers. Except pigs.
Indeed.
Now slowly and sadly Merry walked beside the bearers, and he gave no more heed to the battle. He was weary and full of pain, and his limbs trembled as with a chill. A great rain came out of the sea, and it seemed that all things wept for Theoden and Eowyn, quenching the fires in the city with grey tears. It was through a mist that presently he saw the van of the men of Gondor approaching. Imrahil, Prince of Dol Amroth, rode
Who?
up and drew rein before them. "What burden do you bear, men of Rohan?" he cried. "Theoden king," they answered. "He is dead, but Eomer king now rides in the battle, he with the white crest in the wind." Then the prince went from his horse and knelt by the bier in honor of the king in his great onset. and he wept. Not that we care, because he's totally immaterial. And rising, he looked then on Eowyn and was amazed. "Surely here is a woman," he said. "Have
No shit,
even
dude.
right? Have
Thank
even
you, Prince Obvious. Anyway, sorry.
have even the women of the Rohirrim come to war in our need?" "Nay, only one," they answered. "The Lady Eowyn is she, sister of Eomer, and we knew not of her riding until this hour, and greatly we rue it." Then the prince, seeing her beauty, though her face was pale and cold, good thing she weren't ugly, huh? Then he just buried her.
Also, can we talk about the idea of playing a party game called Woo or Rue? I don't know what it would entail, but it struck my fancy.
Woo or rue, we're on it. Though her face was pale and cold, touched her hand as he bent to look more closely on her. "Men of Rohan," he cried, "are there no leeches among you? She is hurt, to the death maybe, but I deem that she yet lives." And he held the bright burnished vambrace that was upon his arm before her cold lips, and behold, a little mist was laid on it, hardly to be seen. Yay, Prince Imrahil did a thing!
See, there we go. Now he has a plot, or a
Yeah.
purpose in the plot, and now I will have a reason to remember his name.
"Haste now is needed," he said, and he sent one riding back swiftly to the city to bring aid. But he, bowing low to the fallen, bade them farewell, and mounting rode away into battle.
Hey,
And
someone should get a doctor for this chick. Not me though. Bye.
hi! But only because she's pretty.
Yeah, there was sort of a Sleeping Beauty sort of situation there where he was like, "Ah, what a lovely dead woman.
Yeah.
Oh, she's not dead. Well, goodbye."
If she'd been dead, you'd have to told you to take her to my room, you know,
Ugh.
for decor.
Not better.
I mean, it's better, it's just not good.
Fair, yes. Slightly better, but still very bad.
And now the fighting waxed furious on the fields of the Pelennor, and the din of arms rose upon high with the crying of men and the neighing of horses. Horns were blown and trumpets were braying, and the Mumakil were bellowing as they were goaded to war. I'm sorry. Who was it who described large beasts wallowing and sneezing across the... I feel like that was a Pratchettism.
It sounds like a Pratchettism.
Yeah. Just whenever someone describes things that are large moving around, I picture wallowing and sneezing.
That's probably pretty accurate. That seems to be how large animals move about the world.
And the Mumakil were wallowing and sneezing as they were goaded to war. I lied. Under the south walls of the city, the footmen of Gondor now drove against the legions of Morgul that were still gathered there in strength. But the horsemen rode eastward to the succor of Eomer. That is one of English's most awkward words.
It is extremely awkward, yes.
Yes. Hurin the Tall, Warden of the Keys, and the Lord of Lossarnach, and Hirluin of the Green Hills, and Prince Imrahil the Fair, with his knights all about him. Not too soon came their aid to the Rohirrim, for fortune had turned against Eomer, and his fury had betrayed him. The great wrath of his onset had utterly overthrown the front of his enemies, and great wedges of his riders had passed clear through the ranks of the Southrons, discomfiting their horsemen and riding their footmen to ruin. But wherever the Mumakil came, there the horses would not go, but blenched and swerved away, and the great monsters were unfought and stood like towers of defence, and the Haradrim rallied about them. And if the Rohirrim at their onset were thrice outnumbered by the Haradrim alone, soon their case became worse, for new strength came now streaming to the field out of Osgiliath. There they had been mustered for the sack of the city and the rape of Gondor, waiting on the call of their captain. He now was destroyed, but Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul, had flung them into the fray. Good old Gothmog.
Oh, Gothmog. I forgot he was actually from the books.
Right? And I can't not picture that diseased pink guy.
Yep.
100% my golf mug. Yum, 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 yum. Easterlings with axes and variags of Khand, Southrons and scarlet, and out of far Harad, black men with white eyes and red tongues.
Awkward.
Yeah, and I left out the like half trolls.
Moving on. Anyway, there were a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
Who
Not
were
at
tragically
all
not
racist.
described.
Not at all. Right? Can we just make them pale? Can that
Yes.
just can everybody?
Yeah, pale and like creepily pale, like kind of like worms that never get any sunlight because they live in Mordor, which never gets any sunlight.
Pale men like huge grubs with white eyes and red tongues. It works.
It really does. Actually, it works much better.
Some now hastened up behind the Rohirrim, others held westward to hold off the forces of Gondor and prevent their joining with Rohan. It was even as the day thus began to turn against Gondor and their hope wavered, that a new cry went up in the city, it being then mid-morning, and a great wind blowing, and the rain flying north, and the sun shining. In that clear air, watchmen on the walls saw afar a new sight of fear, and their last hope left them. It's entirely possible that some of them flung themselves off the cliff at that point because
that would be really unfortunate timing.
Denethor is not the only melodrama queen.
No, indeed.
For Anduin from the bend at the Harlond so flowed that from the city men could look down it lengthwise for some leagues, and the far-sighted could see any ships that approached. And looking thither they cried in dismay, for black against the glittering stream they beheld a fleet borne up on the wind, dromuns and ships of great draught with many oars and with black sails bellying in the breeze. Corsairs of Umbar, men shouted. The Corsairs of Umbar! Look! The Corsairs of Umbar are coming. So Belfalas is taken, and the Aethir, and Lebanon is gone. The Corsairs are upon us. It is the last stroke of doom.
Doom, 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 doom.
Doom! And actually, yeah, that would be horrifying because that's where they sent all of their aged and women and children. So,
Yeah, that would actually be very upsetting.
For 5 minutes, you would have to be just absolutely devastated.
Mm-hmm.
And some, without order, for none could be found to command them in the city, ran to the bells and told the alarm, and some blew the trumpets sounding the retreat. Back to the walls, they cried. Back to the walls. Come back to the city before all are overwhelmed. But the wind that sped the ships blew all their clamor away. The Rohirrim indeed had no need of news or alarm. All too well they could see for themselves the black sails. For Eomer was now scarcely a mile from the Harlond, and a great press of his first foes was between him and the haven there, while new foes came swirling behind, cutting him off from the prince. That would be Imrahil.
Who? I mean, oh yeah, I remember him now.
Now he looked to the river, and hope died in his heart. And the wind that he had blessed he now called accursed. I would take the moment, too. I would take a moment of time and be like, fuck you, wind.
God damn it.
Damn it. But the hosts of Mordor were enheartened and filled with a new lust and fury. They came yelling to the onset. Stern now was Eomer's mood, and his mind clear again. He let blow the horns to rally all men to his banner that could come thither, for he thought to make a great shield wall at the last, and stand and fight there on foot till all fell, and do deeds of song on the fields of Pelennor, though no man should be left in the west to remember the last king of the Mark. So he rode to a green hillock, and there set his banner, and the white horse ran rippling in the wind. Out of doubt, out of dark, to the day's rising, I came singing in the sun, sword unsheathing. To hope's end I rode, and to heart's breaking. Now for wrath, now for ruin, and a red nightfall. These staves he spoke, yet he laughed as he said them, and a red nightfall.
I was over here all serious, and then you were like, "And a red night." We're fucked.
Maybe it was more superhero-y, and a red nightfall. For once more lust of battle was on him, and he was still unscathed, and he was young, and he was king, the lord of a fell people. And lo, even as he laughed at despair, he looked out again on the black ships, and he lifted up his sword to defy them. And then wonder took him, and a great joy, and he cast his sword up in the sunlight and sang as he caught it. What's he singing now?
I saw the sun.
Do. We will. I lost my voice.
He threw his sword in the air, and then he caught it and sang as he caught it.
And all eyes followed his gaze, and behold! Upon the foremost ship a great standard broke, and the wind displayed it as she turned toward the Harlond. There flowered a white tree, and that was for Gondor. But 7 stars were about it, and a high crown above it, the signs of a Elendil that no lord had borne for years beyond count. And the stars flamed in the sunlight, for they were wrought of gems by Arwen, daughter of Elrond. We know who Arwen is. And the crown was bright in the morning, for it was wrought of mithril and gold. A few things here. Éomer recognizes a flag that hasn't been flown in 1,000 years, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, educational standards in Rohan are high.
They don't read, but they sing many songs.
Right? And so they would know the standard of the king on sight, even though no one has seen it. And the other thing is, I think this is the first time the text has said, "Behold," and not been followed by, "It was too dark to see anything."
That could be. I'm trying to think of last time we said "behold."
Yeah, right. I'll do a supercut of "Beholds" at some point, just for funsies. Thus came Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elisar, Isildur's heir, out of the paths of the dead, borne upon a wind from the sea, to the kingdom of Gondor. And the mirth of the Rohirrim was a torrent of laughter and a flashing of swords, and the joy and wonder of the city was a music of trumpets and a ringing of bells. But the hosts of Mordor were seized with bewilderment, and a great wizardry it seemed to them that their own ships should be filled with their foes, and a black dread fell on them, knowing that the tides of fate had turned against them and their doom. Doom!
Doom, 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 doom. This joke never gets old to me.
Was at hand. East rode the knights of Dol Amroth, driving the enemy before them. Troll men and those, what did we call them? Grub men?
Yep, the pale grub-like dudes.
And Variags and orcs that hated the sunlight. South strode Éomer, and men fled before his face, and they were caught between the hammer and the anvil. For now men leaped from the ships to the quays of the Harlond and swept north like a storm. There came Legolas, and Gimli wielding his axe, and Halbarad with the standard, and Elladan and Elrohir with stars on their brow, and the dour-handed Dunedain, rangers of the north, leading a great valour of the folk of Lebanon and Lamadon and the fiefs of the south. But before all went Aragorn with the flame of the west, Anduril like a new fire rekindled, Narsil reforged as deadly as of old, and upon his brow was the star of Elendil. And so at length, yes.
I know you said as deadly as of old, but my brain heard as deadly as a vole. I was like, I mean, sure.
As of old. I suppose if you read Redwall, voles can be pretty deadly.
I was going to say, look, I am not disparaging the name of Logalog Big Club here.
Right? I think Logalog was a shrew.
You're right.
All the Guosim were shrews. What's the difference between a vole? Oh, the vole twins. They were... Am I thinking of the... We're just going to lump voles and shrews together. My apologies if that sounds terribly, terribly specious.
My apologies to the shrew community.
Or the vole community. I don't know who'd be more offended.
That's true.
I mean,
in fact, more apologies to the vole community, because as we've just discussed, they're very deadly.
They're as deadly as Narsil.
And on that completely on-topic discussion.
And so at length Éomer and Aragorn met in the midst of the battle, and they leaned on their swords and looked on one another and were glad. Thus we meet again. What? Sup?
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 Hey, man.
Yeah. Thus we meet again, though all the hosts of Mordor lay between us, said Aragorn. Did I not say so at the Hornburg? And you didn't believe me. What kind of a romance is this?
I was going to say, that's a very romantic thing to say.
Yes. So you spoke, said Éomer, but hope oft deceives, and I knew not then that you were a man foresighted. Yet twice blessed is help unlooked for, and never was a meeting of friends, more joyful. And they clasped hand in hand. Who else reads that and sees the clasp meme? The one from, what was that, Predator? You know what I'm talking of.
Do I?
Oh, damn it.
Also, did you just say you know what I'm talking of?
Maybe.
You are reading a lot of Tolkien. All right. We have 5, count them, 5 eyes. And I am at 2 out of 5 hooks. And if I can get the other 3 hooks on this damn thing, I can actually put the straps on and wear it.
The Predator handshake meme. That is what they did.
I didn't know that was from Predator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They clasped hands.
Oh yeah, that's totally it.
That's what they did. Nor indeed more timely, said Éomer. You come none too soon, my friend. Much loss and sorrow has befallen us. Then let us avenge it ere we speak of it, said Aragorn, and they rode back to battle together. That's also a very manly thing to do right there.
Yeah, right?
Like, we'll process our pain, but first let's be violent for a while.
Toxic masculinity hurts us all.
Is it toxic to be violent on a battlefield, or is it just, reading a room?
I don't know if I'm philosophically equipped to answer that question.
Hard fighting and long labor they had still, for the Southrons were bold men and grim, and fierce in despair. Better than Denethor.
Mm-hmm.
And the Easterlings were strong and war-hardened and asked for no quarter. And so, in this place and that, by burned homestead or barn, upon hillock or mound, under wall or on field, Still they gathered and rallied and fought until the day wore away. Then the sun went at last behind Mindolluin and filled all the sky with a great burning, so that the hills and the mountains were dyed as with blood. Fire glowed in the river, and the grass of the Pelennor lay red in the nightfall. And in that hour the great battle of the field of Gondor was over, and not one living foe was left within the circuit of the Ramas. All were slain, save those who fled to die or to drown in the red foam of the river. Few ever came eastward to Morgul or Mordor, and to the land of the Haradrim came only a tale from far off, a rumor of the wrath and terror of Gondor.
Can you imagine being like living in Harad and you send your entire army off to fight and they like no one comes back?
I mean, I have to picture at least some being like, screw this, like, we're done. Fuck. As soon as the ships arrived with reinforcements for the other guy, I'd be like, clearly we are not blessed by whatever gods we believe in.
Indeed.
I would grab my 10 best friends, we'd steal one of the ships that had just been vacated, and we'd go back south. Like,
oh dear.
Offski. What did you lose?
My needle.
Oh, that's the worst.
It is very much the worst because I have to find it because I don't want the cat to eat it.
Yeah, no.
But also I don't see it freaking anywhere because it's a needle.
Do you have a magnet?
No. No, I don't.
Oh, who is the Saint Anthony? Saint Anthony, come on, Saint Anthony. Help.
I will be perfectly happy to stab myself. Aha!
Thank you, Saint Anthony.
Thanks, Saint Anthony. Please note, I did offer to stab myself, and I did stab myself. That is how I found it.
Well done.
That's a sacrifice I would entirely willing to make.
Aragorn and Éomer and Imrahil, we care, rode back towards the gate of the city, and they were now weary beyond joy or sorrow. These three were unscathed, for such was their fortune, and the skill and might of their arms, and few indeed had dared to abide them, or look on their faces in the hour of their wrath.
Wouldn't you be so annoyed if you were super pissed off and you were on a battlefield and no one would fight you? And then they just run away and you're like, next. They ran away too. Come on, guys. Somebody fight me.
You'd have to just sneak up behind people and stab them.
But you can't do that because of your honor.
Oh, you could totally pull that there's the trope of seeing something that you need to get to across a battlefield and you just kind of stab and slash your way across because there's all sorts of things going on. These people aren't fighting you, but they're in your way. So you just go.
That could work.
Yeah. Do.
The hooks are worse than the eyes.
Many others were what?
I said the hooks are worse than the eyes because they have to match. So I have to like hook them up and then sew them down. Yeah. Anyways.
And yeah, awkward.
You can get hook and eye tape, and next time I'm gonna.
Okay. Many others were hurt or maimed or dead upon the field. The axes hewed forlong as he fought alone and unhorsed, and both Duelin of Morthond and his brother were trampled to death when they assailed the Mumakil, leading their bowmen close to shoot at the eyes of the monsters. That'll be a closed casket.
Yep. Yes, it will.
Neither Herluin the Fair would return to Pinneth Gellin, nor Grimbold to get Grimslade, nor Halbarad to the Northlands, dour-handed ranger. No few had fallen, renowned or nameless, captain or soldier, for it was a great battle, and the full count of it no tale has told. So long afterward a maker in Rohan said in his song of the mounds of Mundburg, we'll do what, like the first 4 lines and the last 4?
Yeah.
We heard of the horns in the hills ringing, the swords shining in the south kingdom. Steeds went striding to the stoning land as wind in the morning. War was kindled. And blah, 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 blah. Roll call of the dead. Death in the morning and at day's ending, lords took and lowly, long now they sleep under grass in Gondor by the great river. Grey now as tears gleaming silver, red then it rolled, roaring water. Foam dyed with blood flamed at sunset, as beacons mountains burned at evening. Red fell the dew in Ramasecor. Which is one of my favorite lines, even though it's definitely the darkest of my favorite lines. Like, whoa.
Right, like there was so much blood in the air, it just condensed on the plants.
Yeah. And then you wonder if that's another one of those things like the dead in the water of the marshes, if that's something that Tolkien saw as a soldier, dew falling red after a battle, like
that very well could be. I didn't know that the dead marshes was something he had seen.
The dead weren't pulled out of the trenches like immediately, and so the dead would fall, and then it would rain, and then the trenches were full of dead people gazing up through the water.
Oof.
Yeah.
War is bad, folks. Like all of this blah 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 honor epicness is not real. War is really bad.
We do not love the
bright sword for its sharpness. No, we sure do not. Also, I do not love that you're chewing on my microphone cord, Cat.
Chapter... I just forgot everything I ever knew about Roman numerals. Chapter 7, The Pyre of Denethor.
Oh shit, that's right. We haven't done that yet.
We haven't done that yet, and we've got 10 minutes, so let's see how far we can get.
Probably to a small flame. Just like one of the little ones, and you're like waiting to make sure it doesn't go out, you know?
Yeah.
I'm giving you a toy. Stop playing with the microphone.
But I want it. When the dark shadow at the gate withdrew, Gandalf still sat motionless. But Pippin rose to his feet as if a great weight had been lifted from him, and he stood listening to the horns, and it seemed to him that they would break his heart with joy. Never in after years could he hear a horn blown in the distance without tears starting in his eyes. That's the PTSD you want to have. Like, I'm suddenly happy!
Indeed. That is like, I don't think it counts as PTSD at that point, but
it does, because it came from a very, very traumatizing place.
Yeah, I suppose so.
It is
not really a disorder to get really happy, though.
It's not stressful.
The thimble now? Okay, keep going.
But now suddenly his errand returned to his memory, and he ran forward. At that moment Gandalf stirred and spoke to Shadowfax, and was about to ride through the gate. "Gandalf! Gandalf!" cried Pippin, and Shadowfax halted. "What are you doing here?" said Gandalf. "Is it not a law in this city that those who wear the black and silver must stay in the citadel unless their lord gives them leave?" "He has," said Pippin. Don't pick nits. It's an emergency.
Right? Why are you rules lawyering right now?
Right? He sent me away, but I am frightened. Something terrible may happen up there. The Lord is out of his mind, I think. I'm afraid he will kill himself and kill Faramir too. Can't you do something? I keep tripping over myself, sorry.
It's okay. It's in keeping with what's happening here. Pippin would be too.
Yeah. Gandalf looked through the gaping gate, and already on the fields he heard the gathering sound of battle. He clenched his hand. "I must go," he said. "The Black Rider is abroad, and he will yet bring ruin on us. I have no time." "But Faramir!" cried Pippin. "He is not dead, and they will burn him alive if someone does not stop them." "Burn him alive?" said Gandalf. "What is this tale? Be quick!" "Denethor has gone to the tombs," said Pippin, "and he has taken Faramir, and he says we are all to burn, and he will not wait, and they are to make a pyre and burn him on it and Faramir as well. And he has sent men to fetch wood and oil, and I have told Beragon, but I'm afraid he won't dare to leave his post. He is on guard. What can he do anyway?" So Pippin poured out his tale, reaching up and touching Gandalf's knee with trembling hands. "Can't you save Faramir?" Maybe I can, said Gandalf, but if I do, then others will die, I fear. Well, I must come, since no other help can reach him, but evil and sorrow will come of this. Even in the heart of our stronghold, the enemy has power to strike us, for his will it is that is at work. Yeah, we know.
Yep. Because Denethor has a Palantir.
Yeah, he does. Are you
Like,
sure?
spoiler.
He has no Palantir. Then, having made up his mind, he acted swiftly, and catching up Pippin and setting him before him, he turned Shadowfax with a word. Up the climbing streets of Minas Tirith they clattered, while the noise of war rose behind them. Everywhere men were rising from their despair and dread, seizing their weapons, crying one to another, "Rohan has come!" Captains were shouting, companies were mustering. Many already were marching down to the gate. Incidentally, what did Gandalf think he could do? Did he figure that he didn't count as a man either?
Very possibly.
Right?
Which might be true because he is a Maiar.
Yeah.
He's not a man.
He's not a man. He's man-shaped, but so is Mary. So, yeah.
Unless, of course, you have the headcanon that one of my friends has, that Mary is female and hobbits just don't
use female pronouns unless someone wants them to,
or
they
that
want to.
the humans can't tell, and because men is their word for humans, when someone says, "Are you a man?" like all hobbits are like, "No, what are you talking about?"
Well, the male pronoun is used an awful lot. I get the feeling though that Mary would have been female if Tolkien hadn't gone to an all boys school and therefore not known how to write a female character.
Indeed.
Touching on or expanding on our AU for Denethor not succumbing to despair and welcoming the advent of Aragorn. Damn it, Ecthelion. Ugh. If he hadn't been doing this, and Gandalf had made it out to the field, would Theoden have survived?
An interesting point. I was also thinking if Gandalf had made it out to the field, Theoden had survived, Gandalf had killed the Witch King, Eowyn and Faramir never would have met.
Oh, yeah, that would have been interesting. But what if Gandalf alone couldn't kill the Witch King? What if it was the three of them? Like, with Eowyn and Merry, they killed the Witch King, but with Eowyn, Merry, and Gandalf, they killed the Witch King and saved Theoden.
Could be.
Like, Gandalf could attack the beast, and the Witch King could avoid him because he's OP, so he goes for the easy kill.
Or having Gandalf near Theoden could have kept Snowmane from panicking and
because
falling over.
Shadowfax has that effect on all
horses.
The lesser horses.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting point. Yes, I see you sneaking up over there.
It might be really nice. If Theoden don't die, then he could probably still get trampled by a Mumakil or something, but it wouldn't be quite as dramatic and singular.
Indeed. Which sort of makes it less satisfying. Like, oh, and also Theoden accidentally died.
That's how I feel about Halbarad, man. We're introduced to him from childhood, and now he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
The companies were mustering, marching to the gate. They met the Prince Imrahil, and he called to them, "Whither now, Mithrandir? The Rohirrim are fighting on the fields of Gondor. We must gather all the strength that we can find." "You will need every man and more," said Gandalf. "Make all haste. I will come when I can. But I have an errand to the Lord Denethor that will not wait." That's called diplomacy, boys and girls. "Take command in the Lord's absence." That's the last gap for a while, and it's 8 o'clock, so.
Indeed. And I gotta feed this cat so she stops attacking me.
Well, I'm sorry I showed up late, but
It's all
yeah.
good.
These days it's usually Tuesday that I start going, "Oh, is it reading night?" Oh,
Well, it's hard with how light it's staying late at night, too.
yeah.
I'm
This is
always like,
true.
wait, what do you mean it's 7? It's still light outside. And then I'm like, oh, yes, because it's not winter.
That's right. In fact, the days are longer than the nights. So, I took this sheet down. I decided to just tape all of these to each other because the
Mm-hmm.
sheet was giving me a sort of sense of forebodingness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that's at.
That's lovely.
Ooh, that one fell.
I got 2 eyes and about a half a hook before the cat started attacking my sewing, along with everything else in the vicinity.
I had a hilarious story from yesterday about our cat. Before we go, because it's so freaking funny. So our neighbor moved in a year or two after we did,
Mm-hmm.
and she's told me before that she moved in like she was about the neighborhood. It's nice, but it's not. And then she saw Shippo and went, "I want to live in the neighborhood with that cat." So she adores Shippo. I didn't know how much until yesterday. Abby was playing with their kids, and I went over to pick him up. And he was like, 10 more minutes. I was like, okay. So I went to leave, and I opened the front door, and Shippo's standing there. And he goes and looks me in the eye, and then backs up a step and looks at the doorway, and then kind of shrugs and walks past me. And Michelle was like, "Oh yeah, he comes over a lot. Our cats get along with him just fine. Sometimes he eats here. Like, yeah, he's in and out a lot." But so
Right? Okay, that human, this house. That human, this house. Yeah, whatever.
yeah, you're in the wrong man. But yeah, that was funny.
That's funny.
I'm
All right.
glad though because it means my cat has more allies, and I worry about him.
Hmm. Well,
Anyway,
I'm gonna go and deal with this cat, madam.
yeah.
This one right here.
You look like you're starving, darling. Oh, you need to eat.
She's on a diet. I took her to the vet and she was like a pound and a half overweight, which when she's supposed to weigh 9 pounds is quite a lot.
Kind of a lot, yeah.
So the vet said she was rotund. So yeah, she definitely wants dinner because she's not getting as much food. Ow! I am not your Okay, I'm gonna go. I love
All
you. I'll
right.
talk to you later.
I love you, cuidado.
Yeah, mas.
Bye.